Grab your cocktail. Happy hour CWG begins.
All right, here we go. Awesome.
Okay. Maybe I'll mute you here if I can do that. Can I do that? Yeah, so that I can only hear you once. Sorry, Ian. Cool.
How many Gringos does it take to get the technology working?
We have 40 people watching right now, so I guess we really should start. So Ian, 100th episode. Congrats.
Amazing. I can't believe it, right? We're already to 100 episodes. And it's crazy because, I joined in around, halfway, around episode 50. And so, I feel like I've been a big part of this process. And of course, I love being a part of the podcast. It's so fun. We get awesome comments and get to share great stories with everybody. But, like I said, it's been 100 episodes and I've only been about halfway through, and you've been along for the long haul. You're one of the founders. And so this is probably something really special for you. This is probably like, I don't know, seeing a child go off to college or graduate or something, like a proud parent moment, I guess. Do you kind of feel that way?
Well, I think it's crazy because the start of this podcast was like very kind of organic, just like seat of your pants type thing, where we're like, let's do a podcast. And then Ted was just like, Paige knows radio, like just start it. So it really was this like just this organic thing that just began pretty quickly. And then we were like, oh, we'll do like a couple episodes, but like now it's been 2 years, 100 episodes. And like going through some of the data that we have listeners all over the world. We have like a big support system in Mexico, which like was surprising. And it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Google Music, it's on all these different platforms. So it's definitely been a cool experience. But yeah. Didn't think we'd have a global pandemic, that I'd be recording from Boston and you in Santiago. That was kind of unexpected, but the new normal, I guess.
Life goes on, right? The show must go on. And so, yeah, it's so strange that, this is the new normal we're living in. Nobody expected this to happen. And I think we're really lucky, or at least I feel really lucky, that we've been able to continue doing the podcast basically like normal, just doing it remotely instead of doing it in the studio like we did before, right? And so I'm really glad for our listeners, for us, for everyone, that we can still broadcast this. So I think, obviously nobody wants to live in a pandemic, but I think we're luckier that it's happened in 2020 than if it happened maybe 20 years ago. This wouldn't be possible for any of our listeners.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is. We are lucky it's happening now, and it's crazy too with technology that I've had a few listeners tell me you can't even tell that you're in Santiago and I'm in Boston. So it is crazy. We're so far away, and yet we're still able to record some of these episodes. So now that we have, almost 30 watchers, viewers right now, we just want to do a plug of please ask questions. This is the first time we're doing this. We've never really shown our face since we're a podcast. We're always kind of, these mystery faces. So ask away, ask anything. Keep it a little PG though. I would ask that. But yeah, ask about the podcast. You can ask about our experience in Santiago and Chile, dynamic, anything. And as always, remember that this podcast is for Dynamic English. They offer online classes and hopefully soon in-person classes once this global pandemic calms down. But yeah, you can do classes online, very easy. So Dynamic English. And please, if you don't subscribe to the podcast, do it on Spotify. Do it on Apple Podcasts, wherever there's podcast platforms, and leave a review.
Yeah, and in addition to that, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, we also aren't just Coffee with Gringos at Dynamic English. We have a lot of other social media channels. We have other teachers that do great videos on YouTube. We have Bernadette, we have Jesse, we have Anais out now offering all these great videos to show as well. So if you haven't had a chance to check them out or any of those videos, you can check that online with our YouTube channel, the our Facebook account, Instagram, Snapchat. I know Snapchat's not super popular here in Chile, but it's a really big one in the States that we love to use. And I think even recently, Dynamic English joined the TikTok game. So I think now even you can hop on our TikTok and you can see some great videos. So if you're really only engaging with Dynamic English through the podcast, we really encourage you to check out all those other mediums because they're really great, awesome content, and the teachers have a lot of fun, just like we do. So we want to encourage all you guys to get out there and check those out also.
So now that we appeased our bosses and did all the plugs, I'm looking at some of these comments. One that stuck out to me is name our favorite Chilean food.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Favorite Chilean food?
I'm going to go first because while I have a lot of Chilean favorite foods, there's one that sticks out in my mind that is the absolute favorite. And for me, it's pastel de jaiba. I love pastel de jaiba. On a cold day, a warm day, if I'm at the beach, if I'm in the city, it doesn't matter. It's so delicious. And what's great about Chile, what I think food-wise is, so I'm from the Midwest in the US, so we're very far from the ocean, really, really far from any fresh seafood. So for me, just having access to fresh seafood like I have here in Chile is just a real treat. So for me, anytime I can take advantage of the really good seafood, I'm a real happy camper. And so, you know, if I see that on the menu, a real good pastel de jaiba, it's my go-to usually on the menu.
That's fair. I'm not a seafood fan, so my apologies.
What?
I know. I'm from Boston too. I get a lot of shade for not liking seafood. It's a common thing for me.
Yeah.
But I would say, honestly, for Chile, the bread. I mean, I ate so much bread when I was in Chile, and I mean, my body didn't love it, but I loved it. It was delicious. They served it with everything. And even just like variations of bread besides like obviously the different types of bread, but like sopapillas I really liked. What was the calzones rotos? Like that.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of starch for sure. But that was, I miss that for sure. And obviously like empanadas. I mean, you can't not like an empanada. It's delicious.
Of course. And what's your opinion on
completos, though?
What's your opinion on completos? That's a real important question.
Well, the thing is like I don't really enjoy a completo. Don't hate me because I don't like mayonnaise, and they put a lot of mayonnaise on it. I know that's like a sin to not like mayonnaise, but I'm gonna take a hot take on that, and I don't like it.
Fair enough. That's really good. But yeah, I'm thinking of some other ones that are some really good ones that stick out. I really like curanto, which if you're not sure what that is, it's kind of like a seafood stew. So It's like a really good broth that includes, you know, sometimes like chicken and sausage along with different kinds of seafood. So oysters or mussels, clams. And I think it comes from Chiloé, really. It's a traditional dish from Chiloé, but you can kind of eat it in most places now. And like I said, I can't stay away from the seafood here. It's incredible.
To change gears a little, another question that I saw was, what is the most challenging thing that we've experienced as hosts of Coffee of Gringo?
Wow. That's another good one.
That's quite a shift.
I'm not sure. Let's think about it. What's been challenging?
I could go. Speaking as an audio person, I think because, you know, this is a kind of organic podcast that's not our bread and butter, like we are a language learning institute, finding the right place to record sometimes was difficult. We did my apartment a lot in Las Condes, which was okay, but like you still heard the micros, sirens, sometimes the dog barking in the hallway, someone was doing construction. That was always kind of a headache because you just had to roll the dice and hope that it was a quiet day in my apartment. And then when we moved to some of those like what are those like shared office spaces, it was also like very echoey, or the AC was on. So like me as an audio person, I was always like, ooh, I don't love like the studios we're working with, but we made it work. And I think it still sounded good in the end, but it was definitely a little toss up some days.
Yeah, I think it's those unexpected audio things, or when you have noise in the background. There's always some kind of problem when you're dealing with technology or recording of some sort. So that's always a challenge. And I think sometimes for me, I think the challenge on the transcription side sometimes is if we say something that's really, really colloquial to the US, sometimes it's kind of tough to really try to explain that in a second language in the right way. It doesn't really convey the same meaning exactly. So I think for me, maybe that sometimes, but I always try my best to try to relate it to our listeners who maybe don't speak English so well, or who are new to the language, so that they can understand it.
And yeah, to pause a little, since we kind of went in a little hot, was I hope everyone has a beverage, because this is a happy hour. Ian, what are you drinking?
Today I'm drinking a Patagonia 24/7 amber lager.
Is that made in Chile?
I think it's Argentinian, actually.
Oh.
So that's the big hiccup. I made a mistake right off the bat. It should be an escudo or something, but
yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but I'm back out here in Cajon del Maipo. I'm staying with a friend. So one of our other dynamic English teachers, Ethan Schuler, he's a great teacher if you want classes with him. He's out here in a cabin in Cajon del Maipo right now, and he invited me to come join out here just to kind of get out of the city. So I had to carry all my supplies with me from the city to Cajon del Maipo, and so my options for bringing beer out here were a little limited. So apologies to anyone Chilean listening. To those from Argentina listening, I like the beer. So what are you drinking today?
I know I'm obvious. For those that don't know, because of coronavirus, I flew home. So I'm in Boston, where I'm from, and don't have access to Chilean beer. So I went with a local of my city of Boston, Trillium, which is a really good craft beer. It's one of those beers where you can only get it from the brewery. So I went maybe last week, and it's really good. It's pretty hoppy if you like IPAs, which is my favorite.
Me too.
Yeah, it's a really good beer, and obviously because you can only get it at the brewery, it's kind of a special occasion thing, which I thought today was. So I treated myself.
Definitely. Well, let's give a big cheers to everyone before we go on further, right? So
cheers. Everyone have
thanks
their
for joining us.
cola.
Yeah, everyone, thanks for joining us today. Perfect. And just reading another comment I saw earlier, there's a few people who asked us even what our names are. So maybe we can just say again our names for those who are new. So everyone, I'm Ian. I'm from the US, and I've been living in Santiago for about 3 years now.
Ooh. Sorry, I was trying to turn you down on my phone.
No worries. We'll see. Oh, we got a good fresh look at your palm there. Well, hopefully this will.
Did it freeze?
Free up? It looks like it froze up.
Okay. Oh, here we. Oh, geez.
There we go. That's all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll introduce myself as well. I'm Paige. I'm from Boston, as I said earlier. Lived in Chile for about 2 years before I came back, basically end of March, when everything kind of exploded with the coronavirus. So had kind of a sad, abrupt leave of Santiago, which was a bummer, but it is what it is. And yeah, as Ian said, started the podcast about 2 years ago, and just been going along.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think for some of our listeners, and even myself included, we're so interested. We talked at the beginning of the transmission about, how you started the podcast, and, how it's been 100 episodes already. And, what are some moments at the very beginning that you can remember with starting the podcast that did you ever think, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull this off? Or, This is something somewhat new for me. And kind of, I guess, what were the hiccups and some of the lessons learned, I guess, along the way?
Yeah, good question. I think what was so great about it was that it was really a small team. So me and before you, the other co-host Mariah, were really given all the reins. Like Ted and Andrew were great, where they were just like, do the podcast and like make all the decisions and we'll just kind of check in. And I really like that because we were able to really experiment a lot. We got to workshop the name. We got to produce the intro and really like launch it from the very beginning, where like I put it on Spotify, I put it on Apple Podcasts. So for me as a radio person, it was really just such a great experience. I mean, lessons learned, I think the things we learned of episodes people like the most, definitely like more topical things, more entertainment than like the grammar. I feel like those episodes do a little better. Shorter the episode is always better. Sometimes we have a topic where like we could just talk forever, but you really need that like 10 to 15 minute sweet spot. Our listeners just don't listen anymore.
Sure.
I think we like struggled with some equipment, so we got better mics and like had more various guests and stuff. And yeah, like the start of the podcast, like Coffee of Gringos, it was kind of interesting because in most countries, Gringos is offensive, but in Chile, it's not. It's endearing. It's just like you're from the US. And we kind of use that title to play off a lot of 2 years ago, a very common thing that was happening was like, have a coffee of a celebrity. Like it was all that kind of buzz. So we were like, oh, like we want a podcast that's just conversational, because me and Ian learned Spanish in the classroom and it's all about the grammar, which the grammar is important, but how you really learn to speak is just speaking. And so we really wanted a podcast that just wasn't rigid. It wasn't like, I'm at the airport, I'm checking into my flight, like a robot, because you don't talk like that. And so being in Chile for 2 years and like also realizing that like, wow, I'm not prepared from my high school level Spanish. It was like, wow, to get better, it was just talking, like out at bars, out at restaurants, hanging with friends. It was just talking. So we wanted a podcast that really trains your ear of just what you're really going to experience on a day to day. And so it's not really structured, and that's kind of the point. We want it just to be native speakers talking, because that's what you're going to hear if you travel and need to use English.
I think you hit it right on the head there. The whole idea of it is, when you're learning a language in school, of course, it's important to learn those foundations. You want to understand the basics, the foundational aspects of a language. But once you have a good level, you really just need to practice. It's like anything else in life, right? And so if you just sit and read a book that says the ball is blue, the cat is black, this gets very boring very fast. And again, like you mentioned, when you're traveling, when you're working with international partners, when you are watching videos on the internet, you're looking at memes on Instagram, those are the real life experiences and the real life opportunities that someone's going to get to speak to someone in another language, right? Mm-hmm. So while it's important to cover those foundational aspects, it's really more fun and really, I think, more beneficial to have those conversations, or to listen to two natives like ourselves having a conversation, because these are the kind of things they don't teach you in classrooms. And that's what I try to tell my students, you just have to practice. And this actually ties into a comment I saw from someone earlier here on Instagram, that they were asking, what kind of advice would we give to someone who's kind of struggling with trying to translate something from their mother tongue, their first language, into English without having to struggle too much, without having to reach for a word, for it to just come naturally. And so I think me personally, and I think this is great that we can share our experiences living here in Chile, because, a lot of the frustrations that our students are going through are frustrations that we've been through living in Chile, trying to learn Spanish, right? And so something for me, like I have to say again, is just practice, practice, practice. So you need to have conversations with natives. You need to learn the words that they use. And in addition to that, you need to learn from any mistakes they tell you. So you're not going to learn a language if you're afraid to learn mistakes or make mistakes. And so it's important that you listen to the way that natives talk. You talk yourself, and you make these mistakes and you learn from them. And when it comes in terms of taking one thought or one word and translating it more, I guess, without any problem, you know, for me, like I told you, it's just a lot of practice and memorizing and getting the flow of using verbs in the right tense, using the right vocabulary word. And it's even little things, like I tell my students. I know that you probably learned this word in school, but it's not something we really use in real life. So I think that you should use this word instead. And this is a great way for you to sort of understand exactly how a native talks. And like I said, you just have to practice, practice, practice. And before you know it, when you were reaching for a word in your brain, it's just going to pop out of your mouth. And you're going to realize it one day and say, wow, you know, I'm getting it. I'm feeling more comfortable with the language. And it's a sign that your brain is making that switch too. So I want to encourage everyone out there who maybe feels like they're at a point in their English language learning where they feel like they're not progressing much or they're having trouble to have that really natural transition. My advice to them is just keep your head up, keep practicing, and, you know, just really pay attention to what natives are saying and really take note. And that's the way you're going to make yourself sound more fluent, and it's going to just come more natural.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that was what helped me when I was in Chile with learning Spanish. It was just speaking, and that's the hardest thing, is like getting over being embarrassed, you know, because learning a language is tough. If people say it isn't, they're lying to you. It's difficult, and as an adult, it's hard to learn because speaking is so basic. So it's like when you speak like a child as an adult, it's embarrassing. But once you get over that hump of just not being embarrassed, making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, that's when you really reach a new level of language learning. But back to the comments, because I love everyone. Ask questions, comment. There was one I thought was interesting was, since we're native speakers, Ian, someone asked what accents in the US are most hard for us.
I love this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on where you're from, obviously. Like for me, Southern accents are really difficult. Like the thick Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, those accents. And they also have a lot of slang in those regions. Like every region has their own slang. So for me, it's difficult. I mean, I can still understand it, but you just kind of have to get used to, even the tempo is different, the rhythm. What about you, Ian?
I kind of have to echo what you say. I think it's funny because I'm from the Midwest, but kind of south in the Midwest. So, you know, my friends from the North, they tell me that I have a Southern accent. And to me, I think I have more of a neutral accent, but I definitely hear the Southern accent where I live in Missouri, but the further south you go, I think the thicker the Southern accent gets. So like you mentioned, the Alabamas, the Mississippi, Texas. And for me, I think Louisiana might be the hardest. When I went and visited New Orleans 2 times, both times I would be speaking with people, locals, and they were so difficult to understand. Of course, we're speaking the same language, but you almost think, is this person speaking English to me right now? You might want to ask them to repeat something. And like you said, they use different vocabulary, and, you know, it's tough sometimes. And there's even shows in the US. I've told people there's some television shows that take place in Louisiana, and they even show subtitles on the screen for the English viewers because the accent is so thick and it's hard to understand. So I would mostly say the South as well is probably the hardest. And in the US, you have different accents in all different areas and regions, but I think the South has its own unique accent in terms of comparing to other regions. That makes it difficult.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a question out there for everyone. Okay. So me and Ian are going to say ours, and we'll wait for some comments. So favorite episodes and moments of Coffee of Gringos, aka CWG. I can start. So it's definitely tough because we've had a lot of good episodes. My favorite, I will say, are episodes that are a little more out there. Like I love the episode we did on old wives' tales and urban legends and like Guinness World Records, because I'm learning as we're doing the episode. I'm like, that's bizarre, or I didn't know about that. So I love those type of episodes that are just kind of unique. But then also the guests. I love the guest episodes because you never know what you're going to get. And again, like Dynamic English, we had a lot of guests from Dynamic English who are also professors, and they come from all over the world, from all different parts of the US. And so you always learn from them. Like one of my favorites, I think, was Mateo when he talked about writing his book for Valparaiso. And he told us about like his heartbreak and like how he ended up there. And it was just like a very engaging episode. I think we could have asked him questions for an hour.
I think so. It's so funny you mentioned that because, you know, like we invite somebody on to be a guest because we hear they're going to be interesting. They have something fun to say, but sometimes like we don't even know the guest that well. We've both had guests come on to where it's the first time or the second time us meeting them. And so we learn a lot about other people, right? And so exactly like you said, we learn a lot about, you know, when we've had Mateo on to talk about his book, and when we had, for example, we had Daniel on to talk about capitalism. That was pretty interesting. We also had Jesse on. We talked about gun violence in the United States and really just gun laws in general, which, you know, isn't a fun topic, but I think it's a really meaningful and a really interesting topic culturally that a lot of students ask me about and really want to get that perspective so they can understand the cultural problems that we face in the United States in particular. So while they're not always like fun topics, I think they're really interesting. So I think those ones are really good. I
don't see any in the comments, probably because there's just so many favorite episodes people couldn't decide. So my next question I'm going to put on the screen will be funny moments and bloopers. Okay, I had a lot of blooper moments, definitely in the beginning with Mariah. Anytime you're learning like how to do a podcast, you're just going to mess up and learn better ways to do it. And we would butcher the name a lot. Like we've called it everything, like corner shop with Gringos, toffee with Gringos. We've just called it like everything, and it's really funny. And we've just said weird stuff that like wasn't even English or just like awkward and like phrases. I was like, did I just say that? Like, so we've had some fun, really funny bloopers. And then one of my favorite bloopers with Ian is, don't hate me, Ian, but when we had our boss as a guest and he didn't remember his name.
That was a classic brain fart.
He's like, joining us today as his very special guest, Andrew. What's your name? And we were
Andrew.
I was like, oh,
Andrew. Loading. That's a real classic example of a brain fart. And for those of our listeners who don't know brain fart, this is a word we use in the US to say when you have something in your mind that you know, and for some reason it completely escapes you. And so something that you always know, when it comes time to say it, you don't know what to say. You kind of blank. And so in Spanish to be pedo de mente, pedo de cerebro. So it kind of explains itself, the meaning. So yeah, I'd say that one was pretty funny. I think for me, some bloopers that are funny is just when we're recording, right? Because we're not really recording the episodes live. And so sometimes we'll say something and we'll stumble over our words. Maybe me more than you. So, you know, welcome to Coffee with Gringos. I'm blah, 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 blah. Why did I say that? Okay, let's start over. Wait, that's not the word. We're lucky this isn't live. Kind of things like that, you know? So it's the behind the scenes things that our listeners don't get to listen to when they hear the fully recorded cast. But there's definitely mistakes that go into this, folks. Don't think we're seamless with our production, because that's definitely not true.
One of my other favorites, it's like a bugaboo for Ian, is saying what platforms are on. For some reason, he's like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, like he'll say things we're not even on. And I'm like, why is this list?
There's too many handles, too many things for me to remember sometimes. I think, all right, how many social medias exist in the world now, right? It's hard to keep up sometimes. So,
well, that's like the thing that happens when you do recordings, is there's this thing that you always say that you know you mess up, so then you like get in your head. And that's for you, Ian, is like, you know that you mess that up. So when it gets to it, I'm like, is he gonna mess up? Is he not?
Exactly. It's hard to keep up with everything. And all right, let's do this. Don't screw up. Don't screw up. Don't screw up. Don't screw up.
But it's so minor, but it still makes me laugh. It's really funny.
Yeah, exactly. And those are those funny moments we deal with that people don't really get to see behind the scenes, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
I have another interesting question for you, and I think it's a tough one because we've had a lot of great guests, and we're really lucky to have had them join us and talk. But what are one or two guests that really stuck out in your mind, or you thought were fun guests to have?
Fun guess. I mean, they've all been very good. They've all been very good. So thanks, guests, for joining us. I think one, like I said, Mateo was really good. Jesse was good, especially because the topic, like he's from Oklahoma, which is like a conservative state. So like talking about gun policy was just, and you're from the Midwest and I'm from the Northeast. So we just kind of learned a lot. And that's what's really good about a lot of our guests, as well as like me and Ian, is we didn't know each other before. So when we're talking, we really are talking about this for the first time. So it's like pretty organic, where I'm like, oh, wow, you can do that in Oklahoma? Or, oh, I didn't know that about your state. Or so it is like very organic when we talk. Like we don't pre-script the episodes. We don't really know sometimes what we're going to say. And we like that because it makes it just like a real conversation. So Jesse's been good. Mateo. Andrew was really good because he just has a lot of bizarre hobbies. So he's like into droning and like some of the stuff he told us. I was just like, oh, cool. Good for you. But yeah, we've had a lot of interesting guests, mostly because we've had guests from all over. So that's always good. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, you bring up some good ones. I think I was going to mention Andrew as well, because like you said, he's had a kind of a strange or really interesting trajectory ending up here in Chile, right? And so, you know, he worked at a ski station in the United States, met some South Americans, met Chileans who told him, hey, come down to Chile. We have great mountains. We have great snow. We have piscola. We have everything. And that's what brought him down here. And 10 years later, you know, he's in Santiago. He's got a dynamic English. And we're here today with this organization because of that strange trajectory, basically. So that one was fun. Another notable one was when we talked to Claire about wine.
Yeah.
Just because I am kind of an idiot when it comes to wine. Before coming to Chile, I barely drank wine because wine in Missouri and in the US is not very good. And if it is good, it's really expensive. And so it's really funny to come here and learn about wine, become more of a wine expert now that I'm in wine country, and enjoy it more. And she was able to tell us about the tannins and what's a good wine, what to look for. And I just feel a lot more sophisticated now that we had the pleasure of talking with Claire.
And like, if you guys didn't listen to that episode, you have to, because Claire is one of my favorite humans. She's so interesting. She says things that always make you laugh. So she taught us about wine in a very entertaining way.
Definitely.
And we also did an episode just about Claire because she's such a character. We're like, just chat and we'll record you.
Yeah, sometimes there are those certain people that you have in your life where you could just turn on a microphone and let them talk, and you'd have hours and hours and hours of interesting conversations and stories and all of that. So it's really good. Okay. Everyone, I'm really sorry. I'm reading in the comments that that I have an echo, and I'm really sorry if that's annoying everyone. I'm trying to figure out how to fix this, but are you recording? Noticed, I'm not very good.
Are you recording on your phone, Ian? I put my headphone jack in my phone so it doesn't echo.
That's a good idea. Let me see.
I was getting an echo because of the Instagram Live and then the YouTube.
Okay, let me see here. Sorry, everyone.
Well, while Ian's doing with tech, I'll share. Please comment. Please ask questions. We want to engage. We don't want to be just doing questions that we have, but some weird moments. So I think what we forget when we do this podcast is that it's out in the world. Like, you can listen to it on all these different platforms. And a lot of the topics we have are pretty personal. Like, we talk about our lives, experiences, some of our fears, our vices. Like, we get pretty personal sometimes. And I forget that people are listening. And so it's funny, like, I was at a party in Santiago and there was an episode that we did about drinking, like, what's your favorite cocktail, what beer you like. And I went to like talk to my friend and she's like, what do you want to drink? And the girl goes, oh, I know you don't like hard alcohol, so I'll get you a beer. And I'm like, I've never even met you. Like, how do you know that? And she's like, oh, I listened to Coffee with Gringos. She like knew how I liked my drink and like all this. I was like, I guess that's flattering, but it feels like invasive because I'm like, how do you know this personal information about me?
You should have known what you were getting into, Paige.
Yeah, it was. You just forget because we just kind of speak and it goes out there, and then I forget that people listen and lots of stuff that are out there about me.
Yeah, right. I guess that's the life of
an influencer. What about you, Ian? Have you had any like weird moments like that, or comments, or I don't know, anything?
I think luckily not really. Maybe I've been able to stay out of the limelight a little bit. But yeah, I mean, maybe just like little comments about like on Instagram every once in a while or whatever about, you know, things like what you mentioned, or just, you know, we love your show. Like I love seeing comments of people that are listening and love looking at all our different viewers. For example, something I didn't expect was I knew that we would have viewers from Chile, but we have viewers from Argentina, Mexico, Uruguay, Brazil, most of the countries in Latam. And I love that, you know, we can really spread the word. And I've even seen other viewers in some Asian countries, in Europe, in the US. And that's kind of why we do this, right? We want to spread all this to everybody we can, no matter where it is. It's not limited just to Chile or South America. It's for everyone. And so as we're becoming these big and powerful influencers, these sort of things happen. But, you know, it's always fun. It's always in good weather.
Well, before I forget, because like we're in now 40 minutes. As Ian asked about kind of just the launch of the podcast, as Ian said, he came about around 50 episodes in. If you guys listened from the beginning, the other co-host was Mariah, who sadly had to leave because she was going back to be reunited with her family in Minnesota. But we reached out to her because we thought, this 100th episode wouldn't be possible without her. So we wanted her to make a video just to say hi to all the listeners and to tune with her. So I'm going to play that video now for you guys. This is Mariah. Give me 1 second. Okay. Screen. Okay. So I'll put that down, and here we go. This is Mariah from Minnesota.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mariah Waika, and I was one of the original hosts of Coffee with Gringos. First of all, congratulations to Ian and Paige for carrying CWG forward and reaching 100 episodes. Perhaps more importantly, thank you to all of you listeners for continuing to listen to our voices. I really hope that you've enjoyed the podcast and that you've learned a thing or two about English along the way. Paige asked me to share some of my memories from Coffee with Gringos, and there are way too many to choose from, but a couple popped into my head right away, and a lot of them have to do with when we were first starting CWG. So we used to record Coffee with Gringos sitting on Paige's couch in her apartment in Las Condes. So I don't know what the recording studio looks like these days, but that's how it was for us in the beginning. Super professional, I know. And Paige has a lot of experience with radio, and Paige is just like a natural at this. And I had never recorded my voice for anything, and I was super nervous. And I remember the first time we recorded together, Paige was like, "Ryan, are you okay? Or are you going to be able to do this?" Because I messed up like 600 times before we actually had content that was functional. Just in general, when we recorded Coffee with Gringos, we spent 25% of the time recording and 75% of the time laughing. It was a total blast, and you all were the reason we did it. It just meant a lot to know that people were listening and enjoying listening to our strange stories and our goofy ideas. So I'm really proud to have been a part of Coffee with Gringos. I'm proud of Ian and Paige for continuing it, and it was such a great project to be a part of. Now I live and work in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I teach English and citizenship to adults, so I've continued teaching since my move from Chile. I definitely miss Santiago. I miss my friends there, and I miss the city a lot. And I miss the folks at Dynamic English and Coffee with Gringos. So thank you so much for inviting me to say hi, and have a great day. Bye.
Oh, that was really nice.
Yeah, really nice. So that's Mariah. She was the co-host before Ian. Let me unshare. Okay.
I think Mariah is going to have to be a featured guest for us at some point in the near future.
Definitely.
Right? Now that we don't have these issues with having to have someone in the studio, we can just record online. I think she's another one we need to add to the list. Get some good feedback.
Definitely. And like she said, it was, ooh. Oopsie.
All a part of the process. All a part of the process. It's never smooth, but we get it done.
We're good. We're good. My phone didn't break. No, like that's what was funny is like because whenever you're being recorded, you're always pretty nervous. But again, like we don't record live, and messing up is kind of part of the process. So she like was so nervous, and then like Yeah, she's definitely missed. We'll definitely have to have her as a guest. So since we're, 15 minutes left in this, we figured maybe we'll change some gears to just some personal stuff. So, Ian, next question, favorite cocktail or beer?
Oof.
Since this is a happy hour, I think we have to.
You're right. It's fitting.
Yeah.
Well, while I do think Chile has great beer, I really do. Chile has a great burgeoning craft beer scene, for example. There's some really good ones. I love Kunzman. I love Cross. What others? The Volcanes de Sur. I mean, there's a lot of them. So I, of course, love drinking beer here in Chile, but I really have a soft spot for the American beers, North American beers. So, in Missouri, there's a brewing company called Boulevard, where I'm from in Kansas City. That's just, hits right at home. I love the beer. It's delicious. And really the US in general has a lot of craft beer. So I'd say a number of craft beers, but I also like whiskey, Pisco, of course. And Pisco is something that I never drank before coming to Chile, and it changed my life. And it changed my family's life, my friends' life. Anytime I've had friends visit here, they try Pisco and they say, "Oh my God, this is so good.
Yeah.
How do we not have this in the US?"
It really is.
And yeah, and my family same. So anytime I go home, it's an order I get from the family to bring bottles of wine, bottles of Pisco, and all the good liquors from Chile. So I'd say whiskey, Pisco, beer are mostly my go-tos, but I'll drink anything if I have to.
I will say that's a thing, like, because Pisco is such a novelty, like being back in the US, like I miss it. I miss the Piscolas. I miss the Pisco sours. They're delicious. I mean, like you said, like craft beer in Chile is up and coming. My favorite brewery was Tamango Green Road. Love that beer. That was such a good beer. But definitely I would have to say the Pisco. And like you said, the wine coming from like the US, I never drank wine until I moved to Santiago. And then it's just, not only is it good, but it's so affordable. Like it's so cheap. And going to a restaurant, I never in my life before moving to Santiago would I order a bottle of wine at a restaurant, because in the US it's so expensive. I mean, they upcharge by like 4 times. So it's amazing to go to a restaurant with someone, order a bottle of wine and not break the bank. And it's great wine. So I miss the wine in Pisco for sure.
That's a really good point you bring up at the wine. We talked about earlier in the US, I almost never drank wine, or if I did, it was cheap and not very good. So I came here and, you can buy a bottle of wine for 3 luca and it's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't complain at all. In the US, the same bottle would cost $15, $20, maybe more. So that's definitely something that Chile just knocks out of the park. I'd say best wine in the world. I'll give that to Chile.
No, yeah. I think like if you listen to Claire's episode, I feel like unfortunately wine is an elitist beverage, and in Chile it's not. And I love that. It's very inclusive. It doesn't matter what economic background you're from. You can enjoy wine with your family. And I love that, because you shouldn't be boxed out of the cocktail. So
exactly.
Good for you, Chile.
Now we're going to move on to the next important question, which is somewhat associated. So what is your favorite drunk food? Your favorite bajon, or in English we say munchies, right? So after a night at the bars, what are you just hankering for? What are you needing to get after the bars to eat?
I will say this is, when I'm drunk, I'm very hungry. So like this is common. I think if I'm in the US, it's always pizza. It's always pizza. In Chile, it was always McDonald's. I don't know if it was just because it was the only thing still open, or like my nostalgia for the US, but partake in a lot of late night McDonald's in Santiago.
We talking Big Mac, or we talking dollar menu? What's your go-to item?
I would get like a quarter pounder, definitely with fries. The fries was the most important. Yeah, McDonald's fries, they can't go wrong. They're so delicious.
Definitely.
And it's funny too, because I like don't eat McDonald's. It's only when I'm drunk. So it's like it's a drunk thought. What about you, Ian?
Well, that's a good question. I think maybe in the US it would be something like pizza, like you said, or maybe like Taco Bell. Taco Bell is a classic munchy place, right? Because it stays up late and it's super cheap. So maybe that. But I'd say here in Chile, I really like I just go for the street food. If I'm, like out in Bella Vista or wherever, you have a million food vendors. And so, all right, I'm feeling a sopapilla, or all right, I'm feeling a completo, a big completo with lots of palta, lots of mayonnaise. I love it. Which is funny because, like you mentioned, when I'm sober, I'm probably not going to go for a completo. It's just a lot. It's really heavy, and I'm not the biggest fan of like hot dogs. But when I'm drunk, I want that completo really fast. So I'd say that's probably my go-to.
I think that's something I love about Chile too, is you can get street food everywhere, all times. Like in the US, it's not as common unless you're in like a big city, but like you're on the highway and you can buy food at the tolls. Like you can buy food anywhere, and it's amazing. Like at the beach, like they're walking around, like you really have great access to lots of snacks. Not good for the body, but like great for the hunger level. But yeah, definitely McDonald's and pizza is my go-to. And other question, right? What was one we had? I saw on the comments, what was question? Yeah, so papillas is definitely a lot of people say completos, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go to Plaza de Armas, and I think it's like only completos.
It's great. Like you said, you have a million options, right? Where I'm from in Missouri, it's like you better hope somewhere's open late at night after the bars and you can get there. But, you walk out the club in Bella Vista and have at it. You got so many options. It's great.
Another good question, and I think because obviously this is a language learning podcast, we've all gone through it. We've all had embarrassing moments. Embarrassing moments with learning a language. I have so many, but one that really sticks in my mind is when I was in Mexico. By the time I was in Mexico, I felt like I had a grasp on Spanish. I'm looking at the menu, but the problem is every country you're in, they have their own words, right? So I'm at the menu and it's like chips and guac. And I'm like, hell yeah, I want some chips and guac. I was very confident. I saw that word in another menu and I was like, this is chips. Like ordered it, didn't even look it up, no problem, getting my chips and guac. And they come to the table with no chips, just guac with grasshoppers on it. So the word that I thought was chips was actually grasshoppers. And like, I guess I should have known better because it is like common in Mexico, but like had no idea. And I was like, what the hell is in my guacamole? Because when they fry grasshoppers, they look like grasshoppers that just died 2 minutes ago. Like it's not like they're chopped up and you can't tell. It's like it is like a grasshopper jumped into your guac. I was like, oh, definitely messed that word up.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's definitely an exotic one. For our listeners who might not know grasshopper, this is saltamonte. So imagine a fried bug, a fried insect inside of your guacamole. And I know Paige was not expecting that, like she said, at all. So that makes it really funny.
Yeah, when you expect chips and you get insects, it's kind of disappointing.
A little bit of a difference there.
But I did try it. It's very difficult to get over the aesthetics of a grasshopper, but it really has no taste. It's just a crunch. So if people like a little extra crunch, I respect that, but I couldn't get over the look because it's like it just looks like it just died. So I was like, hard pass.
Yeah, it adds a little texture, a little crunch, but not sure if it's exactly what you're looking for. So yeah.
What about you, Ian? Any embarrassing language bloopers?
Well, of course, I've had words that, as I was learning Spanish or improving my Spanish, there were words that you get confused. You think they just translate over from English to Spanish, and you end up sounding like an idiot. And that happened to me for a while. So one example I think of is, for a while, I would say actualmente, thinking that I was saying actually, when really in Spanish it's saying currently. So I'd be saying actualmente, 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 and it made no sense. And I had people looking at me like, what the hell is this gringo saying? And so we go back to talking about making mistakes when learning languages, right? And so that was one where finally someone told me, hey man, I think you're using that word wrong. I think you should say this. I think that's what you're saying. And I thought, oh my God, I've been saying this word for 2 months and no one corrected me. I just sounded like an idiot this entire time. And so that one was funny. But the one that really sticks out in my mind is when I got my first day in Chile, my very first day. I went to Barrio Brazil, where I was going to live. I went into an almacén, a little shop, just to buy an empanada, something to eat. And of course, my Spanish was terrible. And I asked the owner, hola, me gustaría una empanada pino, por favor. Something really slow and terrible. And the owner came back to me in super fast Chileno, saying all the Chilenismos, weón, sipo cachai, everything. And afterwards I had to say, perdón, ¿puedes decirme otra vez, por favor? No entendí. And he just went on a rant of, why is this dumb gringo in my store trying to buy my items? And it was a really big eye-opening experience, thinking, all right, well, this is my new country, this is my new home, and I got to learn the language.
Yeah, speaking of that, I just saw in one of the comments, weón. I forgot about that word. Oh, I kind of miss it. Weón? Yeah, it's definitely a word used a lot in Chile. So my Instagram live feed ended. I think there must be like an hour max. Ooh, should I restart it, you think? Just for a few minutes, or? Ian? Ooh. Maybe. I mean, we can just do this for a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, there's so much Chilenismos in Chile. Like, you think you're fluent in Spanish and you go to Chile and you're like, what are they saying? Yeah, it was definitely tough. But yeah, I think we can probably wrap things up since the Instagram feed ended. I think this was great. I loved all the comments. It was nice just to engage with listeners, which we've never done before, and just to celebrate together that we've done 100 episodes, which is really crazy to think. Who would have thought, when Coffee with Gringos was born, we had no idea what we're doing, and now we're at 100 episodes, 2 years in. It's really been great, and I love seeing a lot of comments about how the podcast has helped everyone learn English, and just how much it's helped them professionally, socially, personally. And that's awesome, because that is the goal of Coffee with Gringos, is just to train your ear, to help you, to make you feel more comfortable with the language. So love that.
I agree totally.
Continue to listen.
I agree totally. We love seeing all the comments. We love that everyone who joined. You guys are great. You're the reason why we do this. And you're the reason why we meet together every week and have these fun conversations. Obviously, it's great for us. We enjoy it. But, we do it for you guys. We want you guys to improve, to learn, to have fun. And, if you're ever in a situation with a gringo, we want you to be able to talk just like them and really impress them with your skills. So we want you, again, encourage you to follow us on social media, follow all our channels, all our other teachers who do great content, great videos to learn. And remember, we have a lot of classes available still with Dynamic English. So you can have private classes online, you can have group classes online. And, even though we're in a pandemic and we can't have classes in person, we still have a great way to communicate, great way to learn. And we don't want to let some stupid pandemic ruin our language learning. So don't get your head down, keep staying encouraged, keep learning the language. And like we said, it's a process. It's not something that's going to come in a day or in a couple months or maybe even in a year. It's something you have to constantly work on, but we want to be part of that process and really help you reach your English language goals. Okay. So again, we really appreciate you guys joining, and we're going to keep putting in those hard hours and talk about the hard subjects and everything for you guys and for ourselves. Okay.
Yeah. And like in the spirit of this whole episode of engaging, please reach out to us. I know that you can't see our faces on YouTube. We're not as present since we're just audio, but reach out to Dynamic. Tell us what you want to hear, what episodes you might want us to talk about. We're always open and love the listener engagement. So please don't be shy. Tell all your friends, continue to listen, and thanks for joining us for this special occasion. Cheers.
Exactly.
Everyone.
I'm out, but cheers to everyone. Salud. Have a great night, everyone.
See you next time.
See you next time, as we always say.